Today we're going to be grabbing a broom and flying around Hogwarts Legacy to check out some of the most iconic places from the Harry Potter movies. The devs did such an incredible job of kind of capturing the feel of Hogwarts, just being able to fly around the castle. There's so many things in the movies that we just get a little hint of, but then if you go through these areas, you can really get a sense, that the devs put their heart into this. Now, to talk about this next part is a little bittersweet because we're going to be flying around the Quidditch pitch that is in the game. Now, obviously, it's in a slightly different placement relative to the castle, but man, did they nail the feel of Quidditch perfectly. There's details in this Quidditch pitch that they definitely included because they thought that, they might actually have Quidditch in the game. Easily one of my favorite sections that they include in the Quidditch pitch is this lower level that, we actually see in Chamber of Secrets when Harry and Malfoy are flying through it trying to get the snitch. Oh God, oh God. Next up, we have arguably one of the coziest places in the game that you don't really interact with much, which is the Hogsmeade Station. And this is where the Hogwarts Express pulls in. And the vibes that you get from here are ultra cozy. Again, they did an incredible job carrying over. Again, not a very big place in the films, not a very big place in the game. Still did an incredible job. We had the bridge to the castle, and this they did really well. I mean, we'll zoom out, from the movies and see, the snow-covered bridge. They do a phenomenal job. The courtyard, even the fountain in the middle. There's so much attention to detail in the outside of Hogwarts. I think it's one of the reasons why I like to just run around in this game instead of just fast travel or flying. Just at the edge of the bridge, we kind of get these few rocks which sort of pay homage to where Hermione, punches Draco Malfoy, but it's not quite one-to-one. But further down is actually Hagrid's hut. And if you go inside Hagrid's hut, it is much more sort of one-to-one from the movies, and going around it, it's also closer in proximity to the Forbidden Forest, which, we know his house is there. So really cool that they put this in. They even kind of paid homage to the fact that, it's Hagrid's by putting in like a little Easter egg in there. But yeah, it looks really great. Obviously, we couldn't, compare Hogwarts Legacy to the movies without, one of the more iconic spots that is very important, especially in the movies, and that's the Great Hall. And walking in, they did a perfect job. If anything, they actually did a slightly better job in the game than in the movies. They kind of spread things out a little bit more, made it a little bit more sort of roomy, and, you got the floating candles. It's incredible. All throughout the castle, you have staircases. They handled the sort of moving staircases slightly differently, but again, there's portraits all over in the main tower. There's this sort of magical feel of the staircase in the game. This is an area where it's definitely different from the game to the movies, but I actually really liked the change that they made. Now, getting to some of the darker spots of Harry Potter, the Chamber of Secrets Easter egg is actually in this game. If you go and cast Revelio in front of the sink in the women's bathroom by the Slytherin common room, you can learn about a little snake that is etched there. And if we think about it, I mean, the Chamber of Secrets is there, the basilisk is there. Really awesome that the devs, made the sink in the bathroom kind of one-to-one and put in that little Easter egg. This is where Harry and Cedric Diggory put the eggs underneath the water to hear the mermaid's song. And again, they don't have the crazy giant fountain in the middle, but again, they kept that feel of, hey, there's all these different fountains and suds, and you can actually, press buttons to interact with them. One of the biggest changes of this bathroom versus the bathroom in the movies is that there's no moaning Myrtle to sort of creep on you. Next, we have the greenhouses. These are sort of positioned differently in the game, but wow, this is another area where I think Hogwarts Legacy actually kind of hits on what the movies were trying to do, but does it in an even better way. I mean, the greenhouses look amazing. There's, plants moving around. There's all sorts of, magical stuff going on. There's almost like this misty atmosphere, like it feels humid in there. They did an incredible job with this. Not to mention Professor Garlick is easily my number one professor. I've tried to riz her up with my character all the time. So unsuccessfully. Next, we have some of the classrooms, and we have the Transfiguration classroom. Again, this is one where some of the details of the classrooms in Hogwarts Legacy beat that of even the movies. It feels like they actually created the world of Harry Potter, and made it come alive even more. Obviously, that's more the case with some of the earlier movies, but I mean, they did an amazing job with the Transfiguration classroom. It looks stunning. Moving on, you have places like the Potions classroom, which I feel like in the movies is a little bit more sort of dark and seedy, but even still, they have all these jars of everything. There's even the Potions room sort of office and cellar. Potions class was always sort of iconic in Harry Potter. Obviously, the antagonism was Snape. Then you had Slughorn, giving Harry, Felix Felicis. Next, we have the Charms classroom, really cool classroom. Of course, the famous Wingardium Leviosa. Looks amazing. They even have those like specific sort of benches, where people were like practicing the spells. And then again, it's the little details. It's a little enchanted teapot that's pouring tea for everyone. And again, the Charms classroom even looks better in the game than it does from the movies. Another important classroom in the third movie, we have the Divination Tower. This is one where the only time where I think the game falls short, the movies. And the movies made the classroom much more sort of expansive. It doesn't play a particularly big role in Hogwarts Legacy, but I think they still got the vibes of it correct, even if it's not as big. Now, this has to be my favorite classroom that they did in Hogwarts Legacy, and we'll compare it again to the movies, but the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom looks absolutely incredible. Again, we don't necessarily have, the Boggart closet, but we do have a giant dragon that's overhead, or a dragon's skeleton that's overhead. Again, one of the most iconic classes, and I think that they nailed the classroom even better in the game this time. Next, we have one of the most iconic rooms, the Room of Requirement. It looks stunning, and it's really hard to sort of fully capture the crazy expanse of the Room of Requirement that we saw in the 6th movie, but I think they did an amazing job, even though they had to keep it a little bit sort of linear. Now, while I didn't get to see this common room on my playthrough because I'm a dirty Slytherin, the Gryffindor common room is absolutely amazing. You have the portrait of the fat lady at the entrance. You have these suits of armor. You have this regal red and gold, and all of the sort of kind of almost like knightly, sort of estate elements of Gryffindor, giving them the brave feel, yada yada. Gryffindor, whatever. I mean, come on. It's all about the Slytherin common room for me, which we rarely see much of in the movies. I mean, we only see it when they, when Harry and Ron sneak in with the Polyjuice potion, but man, did they capture the sort of, they kind of captured the evil feel of the common room, but still kept it cozy. And you have these giant windows that look out to the Black Lake. Again, another one that they did one-to-one really well and almost emphasized it even better. Dumbledore's office, or just the headmaster's office, is one that's really hard to truly capture. I think they did a good job. I don't think I was as sort of blown away or sort of like shocked by all the little trinkets. I think this is one where both the books and the movies kind of hit the aesthetic of it even better than the game. But again, the game doesn't emphasize, the headmaster's office as much, but I mean, there's so much more kind of going on. Maybe that's just because, Headmaster Black kind of sucks and, doesn't decorate as much as Dumbledore. But you still have the sorting hat. This time it's on display as opposed to hanging up on a ladder. And of course, we can't talk about Hogwarts without talking about studying and going into the library. Again, this one is just gorgeous. The way they did this in the game is beautiful, probably better than even in the movies. And there's students studying everywhere. There's books flying around. There's enchanted portraits. It's really one of my favorite places. Wish there was actually more that happened here in the game, but it wasn't the biggest part of the story. Now, there is a section of the library that was a big part of the story and also is a big part of the story in the movies, and that's the restricted section. So we actually cloaked ourselves up, snuck in here. As you go deeper into the books, actually, there'll start to be some scary books, some that will like snap at you. They even have like the monster book of monster in there, which like has like the crazy like snarling hands and like flaps at people. One of my favorite parts about the restricted section is when you go through it with Sebastian, he actually comments on one of the books and says that it's Secrets of the Darkest Arts. That is actually the book that Tom Riddle, later Voldemort, learns about how to create Horcruxes from.
I read something rather odd. A Horcrux.
This next part, I don't think any of you guys realized what it was. It's actually a jail cell. This is actually where they kept Sirius Black, and Hermione, cast Bombard on it to break Sirius Black out. Another sort of secret Easter eggy spot is in the dungeons, where you will actually find a lot of ghosts celebrating a death day, and we learn about these because in the second book, Nearly Headless Nick celebrates his death day here.
I prefer Sir Nicholas, if you don't mind.
Did you see that?
Haven't we really headless?
Like this.
This is also how we know when the books are dated. It says that Nearly Headless Nick's death day was 1492, and that's his 500th death day, which means that the second book takes place in 1992. Well, I flew up to the Owlery, which, again, they kind of crushed it. It's in a little bit more disrepair, so maybe, they had to touch it up by the time the books come around. But yes, I walked up the Owlery to the spot where you had the least chemistry between two characters ever, between Harry Potter and the questionably named Cho Chang. Not my favorite part from the movies, not really an important part in the game. It's just sort of there. Hey, props to the devs. They threw it in. They did a decent enough job with it. If your house was Hufflepuff, you got access to a unique mission that took you to Azkaban. While the mission wasn't particularly great, it did show us how the devs were thinking about maybe Dementors in the game. And we also found the lake in the Forbidden Forest where Harry casts Expecto Patronum. Next, we have the hospital wing, which again, the way they did it in the game, they just made it even bigger. They blew up the windows to be even larger. They expanded it more. There's more sort of magical details around it. And then you can actually run all the way, just like Harry and Hermione did, over to the clock tower. Again, sort of symbolic of them being on time because of the time turners that they had. Next up, we get into, again, a little bit of a darker sort of spot. And, this is the top of the Astronomy Tower. I don't know. Some crystal mommy on Venice Beach probably knows the difference. Anyways, this is the very dark scene where Harry, in the bottom of it, witnesses Draco confront Albus Dumbledore. And then, we also know what happens next. One of my all-time favorite things to do in the game, probably even more than riding the broom, is obviously riding hippogriffs. And there's that famous scene in Prisoner of Azkaban where Buckbeak, goes down and touches the water. And, obviously I flew my hippogriff, and you can literally dip, their feet into the water. Keep flying with a hippogriff or a broom, you will actually come across an island. This is where Dumbledore is actually buried. It's where the Elder Wand is when Voldemort takes it from Dumbledore's tomb. Speaking of another dark scene, we also have the boathouse. So this is where in the movies, Nagini actually attacks Snape, and then Harry is the one who finds Snape dying there, is able to get his thoughts which he then takes to the Pensieve. Again, not as much detail here in the game as there is in the movies. In the very end of the 7th movie, there's this giant bridge actually that leads to a courtyard, which doesn't actually exist in the game. And I feel like they kind of just put it into the movies for the 7th movie. I never really knew where this bridge was. But anyways, this is the sort of courtyard, the entrance to one of the main entrances to Hogwarts, where we have the showdown between Voldemort and, you know, all of our heroes and stuff. But obviously it's looking a lot better, you know, in Hogwarts Legacy than it is in Harry Potter, because it's, you know,
say I'd hoped for better.
that wraps it up comparing Hogwarts Legacy and the Harry Potter films. Let me know what kind of videos you guys want to see next or any other comparisons. There are some other really cool Easter eggs that we have found in Hogwarts Legacy that we want to do a video on. Let me know if you guys want to see that next. But yeah, tell me what you guys think.